welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Kevin, and he is the founder and host of the Next Level University. So, Kevin, how are you doing today?
Keegan, as I told you behind the scenes, I'm living the dream. We are recording this 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, so I'm trying to bring the energy to each and every one of you. I'm grateful to be here and see where our conversation takes us.
Heck yeah, that is some great energy to have on a Saturday morning. Saturdays are great because we can sit there and it is a Saturday, so it's meant for sitting and stuff, but you know, whenever we're living the 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, Saturday is the day that we get to do the things that we want to do. So how do you like to spend your Saturdays?
So I own my own business and we have many clients and we have a big podcast and there's a lot of responsibility. So Saturdays I usually work.
Nah.
I told you behind the scenes, I got up at 6 a.m. today and I've been in my studio editing video for the last 4 hours. So that is how I started my Saturday. I'm going to do this wonderful conversation with you and then we're going to see what happens. But usually I'm a huge fan of mixed martial arts. So usually on Saturday, there's some sort of combat sports on. So that's usually where you'll find me on a Saturday night.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
you do find some time to actually sit and enjoy yourselves.
Yes, I am sat at some point on a Saturday for sure.
That's good. Well, I mean, being a podcaster, you're sitting down a lot, right? But you're not necessarily sitting down in your head, and that's the big difference.
Yeah. I mean, it's I've had people say that before. It's like, well, it can't be that hard, right? I mean, you just talk into a microphone. It's like, I understand what you're saying, but that's probably 10% of my day, right? So we do an episode every day, and it's only like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So if you think of it, like that's not that long of an amount of time, but we have 100 and some odd clients that work with the business. There's business meetings. There's all sorts of different stuff going on. So yeah, it's not what I expected, honestly. It's very different than I expected, but I would say very positive, even the negative differences.
Even the negative differences. So are you talking about the things that you're not looking forward to, like editing and stuff like that?
Yes. Well, so we're very privileged and we're blessed where we have a team that does, like, they do all of our editing, right? So we don't do our podcast, but there's certain clients that I work with that I like to be in there with, and I don't want to get too far away from the product for them. So that's a piece of it. And I don't always want to do episodes. Okay, I'll be very honest because nobody else is going to say this.
Yeah.
When I saw this on my calendar at 10 a.m., I was like, oh. Then I went and looked at your website and I saw you interviewing someone. I was like, oh, I'm super excited for that now. In the beginning, it started with Saturday at 10 a.m. I need to edit some video. What are we doing? Then it turned into excitement when I got more information. But I think that's I'm sure you've heard this before. People say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I think it sounds really good on a bumper sticker, but in order to do what you love, you most likely have to do a lot of things that you don't necessarily enjoy. I think dream chasing in general is that. So I'm no exception to that rule.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that you're so human because that is what makes us kind of human, right? We strive for the things that we really, really want, and we have to do a lot of the things that we don't want to do at the same time.
Yes. And most people just don't say that. And I don't know if it's because, number one, I never want it to sound like I'm raining on your parade. Right? That's one thing, is I never want it to sound that way. But I wish I knew how hard this was going to be.
Yeah.
Right? I think accurate expectations are important. So it's never raining. It's just I wish I had more certainty when I started. If I can deliver one drop of certainty, then I did my job.
Ooh, certainty. I like that. And that holds a lot of impact too, because certainty is one of those things that either keeps someone away from doing anything at all, or it's the thing that makes someone jump head on into something.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you got to know, I'm a very certainty driven human being. Far less now than in the past, but I think one of the reasons this journey has been so hard is because I traded in a lot of certainty for uncertainty, variety, surprises, luck, potentially. I mean, a lot of different things. Understanding, I'm somebody who is a very big proponent of self-awareness. For most of my life, I didn't have any. So when I figured out, oh, maybe I am having some level of influence on the problems I'm having, let me dive into me and figure out myself. And I think self-awareness and understanding, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you value certainty? How much do
Mm,
you require certainty? My wife loves fun, unique experiences, so she likes
mm,
variety.
mm,
I
yeah.
don't care, Keegan. I don't. I could stay in this office all day and then watch UFC and then go to sleep. And that's get up, go to the gym. It's pretty much the same day for me. But I think that's just all self-awareness at the end of the day.
Yeah, self awareness can bring us light to the shadows, and it can show us parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily even recognize are there until someone points it out, right?
Yes, yes. And but those are important, even though sometimes they suck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes they suck. I think most of the biggest seasons of growth that I've had are probably also a result of looking at something that I didn't want to see yet.
Yeah. You
Right?
push it. Yeah, because it's something that is kind of like a pimple on your face. It's not the best thing to look at, but you may not know that it's there until someone points it out. And then once you know that it's there, you just want it gone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing either, right? It's just a part of life.
Yeah, I would say the old pimple analogy is a good one. It's a good one.
I don't know where it came from, so let's just hope that it actually stuck to the wall.
Well, it's yours now, and
Uh,
if I use it, I will credit you. I'll make sure I credit you for it.
well, I appreciate that.
Of course. Of course, it's all love, my friend. It's all love.
So whenever we talk about past and love and certainty, how did you find yourself where you're at? Because all of those things are huge milestones or chapters, and they are also things that, like you said, drive you or someone. So whenever you look at your story, how did all those things come into fruition to the next level university?
So, just for context, I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad with the understanding that he was my dad until I was 27.
Mm,
So,
okay.
right there, not a lot of certainty in the beginning. Not there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, we didn't have a lot of money, lower middle class. Outside of that, childhood was normal, quote unquote. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
normal means, right? Normal is contextual and unique. I decided pretty early in life that I didn't want to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to go to a school and pay a bunch of money for somebody to help me figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So in high school, I started to train mixed martial arts. I wanted to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter when I was in high school. That was my goal. So after I graduated, all my friends went away to college. I got a job
Mm-hmm.
at the local gas station. And I would pump gas from 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I would go lift weights from like 2:30 to 4, and then I would go train jujitsu and kickboxing at night.
Okay.
And it was awesome, right? It was
Yeah.
awesome at the time.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty solid routine.
It was good. It was good. It was a really good routine. Then I tore my shoulder, had to get surgery, and thought to myself, interesting, this might not be the best path
Mm.
for me.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So I ended up leaving the gas station, getting a job as a personal trainer. Then I was a housekeeper at a hospital and I cleaned bathrooms and floors overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Truck driver, forklift operator, tiling, construction, on call firefighting, all a bunch of different stuff.
Okay.
Eventually, and let's put this in context too. At this point, I'm just job hopping and I'm like, oh no, I've made a massive mistake by not going to
Mm.
college. Like, this is what people were talking about. We're in trouble here.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up going to this job fair. So
Mm-hmm.
the girl I was dating at the time, her aunt was part of like a job fair in a local town close to
Oh,
us.
yeah.
She said, hey, they're having this job fair. They're going to teach new skills. I know you're looking for a new job. You should go check it out. So, okay, let me see what this is about. So I learned this skill in an
Mm.
industry called weatherization.
Okay. Huh.
So all weatherization is you go into a building or you go into a home and it's your job to make it more energy efficient. So you do
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
insulation, windows, doors, that type of stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I go to this class for like 4 days. I
Mm.
quote unquote graduate. And at the end, the head of this job fair, brings me into her office, and she says, "Hey, you have a really good personality. We're going to connect you with the best company." And I was like, "I'm sure you say that to everybody, so
Yeah,
but I
right.
appreciate it. Let's see what happens." She said, "There's only one downside. It requires a lot of travel." And I was like, "No, I'm good." Again, certainty. I
Yeah.
want to be home. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
looking to travel.
Yeah, yeah.
She said, "Well, hear me out. The job starts at $50 an hour."
Whoa.
And I said, "No, no, no. There's no way this is real. This couldn't possibly be real. Right? I can't believe this." So she said, "They're not hiring right this moment, but they should be in the next couple months. I'll connect you with the owner and you can work it out." It's like, okay, whatever. So I ended up going in for an interview with this company,
Okay.
and the boss said, his name was Ed. He said, "You have a great personality. I feel like you fit really, really well here. I'm going to bump you to the front of the line for hiring.
Wow.
Should be like a month or two." It's like, okay.
Huh.
I keep hearing that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Eventually, a month or two later, I get a call.
Sweet.
And he said, "Are you ready to go?"
Mm-hmm.
I've been ready. I got no money at this point. I've been waiting on this call. So I lived in Massachusetts at the time.
Okay.
The first job I ever did was in Wilmington, Delaware.
Wow.
So I go to the office.
Mm-hmm.
I get into a white Subaru Outback with my boss that I've met one time before. And then we drive, I think it was like 9 hours from Massachusetts to Delaware.
Okay.
He had rented a house for the job, so I then moved into this house with 5 people that I had never met. Woke up the next day and went and did a job that I had never done, because what I learned in this weatherization course was completely different than what we were doing, because we were working on giant schools, not homes.
Boy.
All of that certainty, there was just no certainty. It was gone.
Yeah.
First check I got was 40 hours at $50 an hour.
Whoa.
And I said, "Oh my goodness, this is real." And I was hooked. I couldn't imagine that. I could not imagine making $2,000 in a week. Like I'm not supposed to do that. That's not supposed to happen for me. So I fell in love with this job because the paychecks were really good. So if you fast forward a few years, I was 25.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend at the time was a model.
Okay.
I was in the best shape of my life because I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show.
Oh, wow.
I had this job.
Mm-hmm.
I had a nice car, brand new apartment, great friends. From the outside looking in,
Mm-hmm.
I was living the dream, Keegan. I mean,
Yeah.
it can't get any better than that.
Sure sounds like it.
Right? Internally,
Mm-hmm.
unfulfilled, depressed, anxious, self-conscious, afraid of my own shadow, no self-worth, no self-belief, just a shadow of a human.
Oh, man.
So one day my girlfriend comes to me and she says, "Hey, I'm leaving."
What?
She said, "I have these big goals, these big dreams, these big aspirations, and I just don't feel like you can support me in them." And she was right. She was right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she was right.
Fair.
And she said something very telling that when I think about it, it's like, this was such a pivotal moment in my life.
Okay.
She said, "I would have left last month, but I was afraid if I did, you might kill yourself."
Oof.
And she didn't say it. It wasn't like a thing. It was more like, "Just so you know, I think you might be further down the hole than you think you are."
Yeah. Yeah.
So she left. Work got slow.
Mm.
I definitely had an eating disorder at this point from my bodybuilding show. So I was riding the freaking struggle bus.
Man.
And the only thing I could think of is, well, I have to go make a bunch of money because that's the only way I'm going to dig myself out of that hole. Now, that was one shovel that I needed. I can dig myself out with that, but there's obviously other things I could have worked on.
Yeah.
So the next year, I get a promotion at my job. We have the busiest year we've ever had. I spent 10 months living on the road that year. It was just insane.
Wow.
Get to the end of the year, open up my final pay stub, and I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree.
Wow. Impressive.
Externally, impressive.
Yeah.
Internally, same stuff. I'm still depressed, still anxious, all those things.
Yeah, money doesn't buy happiness.
It does not buy happiness. No, no, it doesn't. It buys things, but not happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I realized in that moment that for most of my life I had lived unconsciously.
Mm.
You can hear it.
Okay.
The story is just unconscious hopping from one thing to the next thing.
Yep.
The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious.
Mm.
So I
Hyperconscious.
did what any young man would do, Keegan. I started a
Yeah.
podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. And
Okay.
that was in 2017. Fell in love with podcasting.
Uh-huh.
Immediately started to hate my job because now I know this isn't the answer. But as you know, in the beginning of the podcast journey, there isn't a line out the door of people saying, Keegan, this is a great idea. How much money can we give you for you to
Mm-hmm.
bring this to the world? It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Nope.
So I had to keep going to this job, and it was starting to be another really busy year,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a ton of travel, and every time I packed my suitcase, I would just be homesick, and I was depressed, and I was anxious, and I
Mm-hmm.
started calling out of work. I started leaving the job sites early, showing up late.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this ended up getting to the point where I was living in New Hampshire at the time.
Okay.
We were working a big job in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, it's like probably 6 hours, probably like a 6 hour drive.
Big one.
It's a big one, yeah. I woke up in a hotel room in New Jersey, getting ready for work one day.
Mm-hmm.
Alarm clock went off at 5:15, 5:30. I sat up, slid to the edge of the bed, lacing up my work boots.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to explain it is there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and
Mm.
every single one was on a different station.
Yeah.
One is saying you're stuck here forever. You're not
Mm.
supposed to be here, Kev. Like, you got so lucky. You can't leave this job. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think you're going to get lucky like that again.
Mm-hmm.
If you did leave, what would your friends think?
Mm-hmm.
What would your
Yeah.
family think?
Mm-hmm.
And then, do you really think you're going to be a podcast? That's what you're going to do. You're going to go all in on the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that
Yeah.
moment, Keegan, where I thought to myself, well, I was just to take my life. I would take my problems with me. That was
Mm.
rock bottom, basement, just feeling helpless, feeling hopeless, no light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I had a really good friend who's now my business partner who I reached out to.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
worked. It worked out well.
Yeah. Yeah.
He gave me some really good advice. He gave me some really good perspective. He gave me a shoulder to lean on. And I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later.
Oh wow.
And then
Huh.
we began the journey of trying to do this podcast thing full time. So 2018, I left my job. We were very broke for the
Man.
next few years. It was brutal. But here's the thing, and here's the encapsulation.
Okay.
When I left my job, my depression went away, but my
Interesting.
anxiety got drastically worse
Yeah.
because I had so much uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not only do I don't know anything. I don't know how
Yeah.
I'm going to make money. I don't know how to make money. I don't know if this is even going to work.
Huh.
But I was also the most fulfilled I had ever been. So there was something to
Good.
the dream chasing, becoming more, feeling proud of what I was doing. I mean, it was a very weird, strange time. So yeah, we've been
Yeah.
doing this full time since 2018, just trying to figure out how to get better and how to be better speakers and podcasters and help more people. And yeah, now we're a successful quote unquote business internally and externally. Fulfilled and successful is what we're aiming for.
Yes. That is way too awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And that is one hell of a journey, and one that I gotta say I admire
I appreciate it.
myself. Of course. And I've got to say thank you for sticking around for all of us that have been impacted by your next level university and the podcast you had before was hyper conscious, right?
That's where it started, Keegan. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to have to look it up and find some of the early stuff so that
Please
way I can,
don't. Please don't.
if it's anything like my early stuff, I listen to it and I'm like,
It will most likely be worse. I mean, it's worse for
mm-hmm.
me because the other day, so my little hack when I'm either flying high and everything seems like it's working or nothing seems like it's working, I go look at old content.
But yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
I
a good
went,
idea.
it is and it's not, it depends. You got to be careful. You got to be careful with it.
Okay.
So I went and looked at episode 1000.
Wow.
So here's the weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
I almost couldn't watch it.
Why is that? It's episode 1000.
Because I'm on episode 2040 now.
Oh.
So this is the weird thing. Was I good, quote unquote, statistically at episode 1000? Probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do something that many times, you should be better than average.
Yeah.
But now when I look back at 2000, it's like, that was 1,000. That was 3 years ago. So
Wow.
now I look back and I feel like it was terrible. I think that's good. I think that's so two things can happen. You look back at a picture of yourself and you say, "Ooh, I was in much better shape back then." Okay.
Yeah,
That's feedback.
Yeah.
Or you look back and say, "Oh my goodness, I remember when I was blank and now I'm blank." Interesting. What a journey it's been. So perspective is so important, because if you're looking at where you are today, you pretty much have to compare that to where you've been.
Kind of, yeah.
Right? And as you go further, you have more to compare it to. So if I go back and watch episode 1, I will cry. It is garbage. It's terrible. Please, nobody listen to it. 100, a little bit better. And as we work our way closer to 2000, it starts to make more sense. But it's weird. Perspective is a weird thing, my friend. It's a weird thing. It is.
Perspective is a very weird thing, and I'm glad that I'm not the only one that feels that way with their podcast, because it's like looking at high school or middle school photos. It's just like how did that exist? Like, y'all let me do that. And it's one of those that we have to also experience firsthand, right? I don't know if your learning style is like mine. I can listen and experience things different than other people, but the thing is, I have to experience it. You can tell me that the stove is hot, but I'm just going to be like, I'm going to touch it anyways. Just like, well, how hot is it? It can't be that hot. And that's how it was with my addiction too. Like, there was no stopping me. I had to get ready for the end of it, and that's just what it was. So with that, the learning style, we how else do you think that you could have learned without having to go through all of that? Um,
I don't know.
be,
I don't think I would have.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so now here's the question though. So we have an interesting format, right? Podcasting, because it's audio, video, but it's recorded, and it's thought, conversation, and it's something that we can easily go back and look at. But we're hyper active, we're hyper focused on how we're presenting all this information. So do you think that hyperactivity, that hyper focus on how we are presenting everything is really the overall perspective that we're kind of looking through that lens?
I think it can be, but I don't know if that's my experience necessarily.
Okay.
For me, if anything, I think one of my main focuses is being relatable to the audience.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of the lens, because so my ultimate goal, as cliche and fortune cookie as it sounds, my goal, what I think my purpose is to be the type of person that I needed when I was sitting on the edge of the bed.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That person would be relatable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of person I'd reach out to, somebody who I could relate with. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's always, I want this. This is what I tell people. I want to be the most extraordinary regular dude ever. Like that's my goal. That's what I'm shooting for. So I think that's like the perspective. I mean, is this going to be on video? This will be on video, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have a hat backwards. I'm wearing an oversized sweatshirt. Like, I should dress nicer. This is who I am, though.
That's who you are. Yeah.
This is who I am. This is who I want. I don't want to pretend that I'm somebody I'm not, but also you can take that too far. So it's a whole thing. So yeah, if anything, I think it's hard. It's almost harder now as a podcaster with 2000 something episodes, because every time I grow, the podcast changes and my perspective changes and the type of person that I'm speaking to changes. So I think more from, how do I get this to land? I think more than almost anything else. And also it's the craft of, how do I not use filler words? How do I do that? So there's a lot of conscious thought going on up here. And I think everybody's is just a little bit different based on insecurities, beliefs, strengths, weaknesses, intentions, right?
Yeah, yeah. And thanks for kind of like re-guiding my thoughts, because for some reason my thought went in two ways at the same time and I was
Oh,
trying to
good.
catch it. No.
Par for the
But
course, my friend.
yeah, it's part of being a podcaster, trying to come up with two questions or one question, and it's like, oh, he said this. Man, I really want to talk about that. Oh, then he said that. And it's like, I want to hear everything that you've got to say. But that's the thing, is that even though we could record this 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour episode, that's still not your whole story, you know? And there's no way we could even try to get 2000 episodes in like 1 hour. So whenever you've got your experiences so far, what is the one thing that you've really learned either about yourself or the audience in general? Because you've got a huge audience. So one of the things that is relatable to the audience, you find most about yourself, right?
Man, I'll give you three.
Okay.
One, in the very beginning, we would have guests on the podcast and they would tell these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to my business partner, Alan, I would say, wow, what an incredible story. We'll probably never hear anything like that again. Next week, it would be the same unique version of overcoming some massive adversity and then using it to better the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest lesson over the
Mm-hmm.
last 8 years is adversity can be your advantage if you know how to harness it.
Ooh.
I won't say it's always your advantage, because that is
Uh-huh.
just incorrect. It's not. I don't believe that. But I think
Mm-mm.
if you have self-belief, if you have self-worth, if you have community, resourcefulness, and an understanding of like a time perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I think you can use your adversity as your advantage.
Okay.
So that's been one big thing.
Uh-huh.
So that's from like a guest perspective. From
Gotcha.
what I've learned from our audience is I'm convinced that most people have been lied to when it comes to setting goals.
Hmm.
You hear this all the time. If your
Mm-hmm.
goals don't scare you, they're not big enough. That type of stuff, that is not, it does not work that well with the vast majority of humans, because
Mm-mm.
my business partner has the most self-belief out of anybody I've ever met. His goals do scare him, but it does not stop him from pursuing the goals. For me, if I set a goal that I'm scared of, I'm not going to pursue it. Why would I? That's highly illogical. Like
Uncertainty.
the uncertainty, and or if I'm afraid of snakes and I set a goal to catch as many snakes as I can, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to chase the goal. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's just illogical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So that's been another big thing, is I think you just have to be very careful with who you take advice from, because if I don't understand Keegan,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't truly understand the experiences, the beliefs, the limiting beliefs, all that stuff, I can't give you really accurate advice. I can give you
Mm-hmm.
a blanket statement, I can give you a menu, I can give you a recipe, but there are certain ingredients that just aren't going to work.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing, I've learned this about me.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are way more malleable than I ever thought. This version of Kev, I did not think could exist 8 years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
could not even fathom it. I had never read a book. I couldn't even fathom it. So 8 years is a really long time,
Uh-huh.
and not, depending, but it's not
Yeah.
about getting 100% better today. It's about getting a little bit better today, or
Mm-hmm.
understanding yourself a little bit more, or doing a little bit less of the negative behavior. It's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily about going from 0 to done. I think it's more
Mm-hmm.
about going from 0 to 1, or 1 to 1.5. I think it's not sexy, right? Small progress is not sexy, but what is the least sexy fundamentals are usually the things that move the needle the most. So, yeah, those are 3 things I've learned over the last however many years.
Okay. Wow. Those are some deep insights, because They really are, and they all really led to my question, and you kind of answered it in your third pillar, and that was the whole fact that you're not the same you whenever you started even episode 1000. That's a different version of you. Your thought process even was different. And that thought process probably changed so gradually you don't recognize it until you look back at the episode too, right?
Yeah, that is one of the hardest things to explain about growth is if you get in the water and it's 65 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
you're not really going to notice when it goes up to 66.
Mm-mm.
And then when you adjust to 66 and it goes to 67, you're not going to note. You really aren't going to
Mm-hmm.
notice until it gets really, really, really hot.
Mm-hmm.
Or you'll notice if you're able to collapse time. So if you got in at 65 and then it went up to 95, you notice immediately, but that's not the
Mm-hmm.
way progress works. It works
Mm-mm.
66, 67. So I think we get used to the growth
Mm.
because it's not the growth isn't it doesn't compound exponentially in real life.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
results don't compound. So yeah, it's really hard, but I think that's why the perspective you need a checkpoint.
Yeah.
You need
Checkpoints.
checkpoints, and you and I have checkpoints because we have something like this, and this is what I always say. The advice I always give is right now, whether you're watching this or listening to this, whether you feel like you're on top of the world or you're riding the struggle bus, take out your phone, record an audio message to yourself, a video message to yourself, write a note to yourself. Where are you when it comes to health? Where are you when it comes to wealth? And where are you when it comes to love?
Hmm.
Check back in a month. Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? It's not going to feel any different necessarily. Bad or good, it's not going to feel any different. But if we have
Mm-hmm.
a checkpoint, I think we just need an anchor. We need an anchor point. We need
Anchor
to be able to
points.
recognize in real time. So that's always a tactic that I try to give.
Anchor points. I love that. And I think you really did surmise growth in that water analogy because whenever you look at it that way, life really does feel like sometimes you're just dropped in a pot of boiling water.
Yes.
And sometimes it feels like you just got dumped out into the strainer and you watched all the water go everywhere and you're left with nothing. So it's going from those extremes and then finding yourself in stable water is definitely one of those like, oh, hey, this is weird. I shouldn't be here either. And
Yeah.
so that's a growth that some people don't recognize either, is that stability is growth in itself
Yeah.
and
Or they
consistent.
sabotage it, right? That's a common thing is people
Mm-hmm.
it's so uncomfortable because you've been longing for it for so long, but you've never
Mm-hmm.
really experienced it. So you find a way to sabotage it. That's a whole
Yep.
nother conversation, but yeah, that happens a lot too.
And a lot of people think that they're afraid of failure, but some of them are actually afraid of success.
Yes. Yeah, I never knew. I remember my business partner. So Alan and I keep saying my business partner, Alan. I've mentioned him
Mm-hmm.
enough. His name's Alan. Him and I we used to have a podcast studio that we built.
Huh. Okay.
And
Wow.
we were in the studio together one day. It was a dream come true. We were in the studio together one day and we were talking about how I was afraid of failure. And he's like, dude, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
afraid of failure at all. I
Mm.
was like, I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. He said,
Yeah.
if anything, I'm afraid of success.
Uh-huh.
I was like,
Yeah.
isn't that why we're doing this though? Like, don't you want to be more successful internally and externally? He said, well, Kev, you got to understand in my past, every time I became more successful, I lost more people.
Mm.
Every time I got an award, people villainized me.
Man.
And it was like, oh my goodness. So if this is kind of the thought process. If you're
Mm-hmm.
out there right now and you're afraid of being left behind, you're probably more afraid of failure.
Mm.
If you're out there right now and your biggest, deepest fear is leaving people behind, you might be more afraid of success. And we work really well because I'm afraid of being left behind and he's afraid of leaving people behind. So I will chase to stay, and it's worked really, really, really well. But we've just gotten a lot of unique perspectives because
Mm-hmm.
most people like me would never work with somebody like him.
Mm. Okay.
Most people like him would never work with somebody like me. But I wasn't organized. I didn't know math. I didn't know business, but I had emotional intelligence and I understood people.
Mm-hmm.
he didn't really understand people. I mean, he's an engineer, so
Mm.
but he knows math and he knows science and he knows
Yeah.
economies and he knows money. So
Mm-hmm.
together we kind of have both sides of the coin, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
a weird journey for sure.
Well, yeah, that is definitely an interesting perspective because it's not necessarily that you're talking to a mirror whenever you're speaking with your business associate.
Never. I'm never talking to a mirror, Keegan. Ever, ever, ever. Never.
It's more like, what was that toy of in the 90s, you could had all those needles and you could put your hand on it and it had
Yeah.
that impression thing. It's talking to him is probably like that. You put your impression there and you get it put back at you and you have a totally different perspective, but it's a similar idea, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever heard the name of that toy. Does it even have a name?
It does. I don't know what it is, but you know
Same.
exactly what I'm talking
I know
about.
exactly. I can see it in my mind. I can feel it. But
Yeah.
if you said I'll give you $1 million if you can name it, I got nothing.
And for everyone out there, it's got those two slates that hold the pins, and yeah. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it.
Right? I think he crushed it. I think he did a great job describing it. We just don't know the name. That's all.
Yeah, fair enough. But whenever you're working with him and you're working with yourself, one of the things that you said before was you weren't feeling fulfillment, but now you totally do,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So his fulfillment and your fulfillment are not necessarily the same thing. So how do you go about this in the business aspect? Because in business, y'all are both in it to get something out of it, but if y'all don't have a similar goal or something, then it's not really going to work.
Yeah, it's a great question because it's been a challenge. I think so. You asked me earlier, what do I do on a Saturday? Like, what's your Saturday look like?
Mm-hmm.
I work less than Alan does.
Mm.
So Alan's schedule today is probably 11 to 8 back-to-back calls.
Wow.
So he'll do 9 calls on a Saturday, every Saturday. He hasn't taken a full day off in 10 years.
Holy cow.
It's a lot. I was
Yeah.
there with him for like the first 7 years, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just started having very honest, vulnerable conversations of me saying, dude, I'm just not like, I'm a grinder. I'm good to work 16-hour day. Like, that's all fine.
Mm-hmm.
I want to spend some time with my wife though.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like,
for
she's
sure.
not going to be fulfilled if I'm not spending time with her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we have to understand that what's best for business is not what's best for human. And oftentimes what's best for human is not what's best for business.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that stuff. So
Mm.
one was admitting what fulfills me.
Mm-hmm.
That's been very important. And
Okay.
like last year, my wife and I went to Scotland.
Ooh.
It was awesome. Is that what was best
Nice.
for business? No, it wasn't. Is that what was best for my relationship and my fulfillment and my mental health? Probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just that. It's just understanding that based on what we talked about earlier. I'm more certainty driven, so I like things in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to work every day.
Ah.
So for him, if I was like, dude, you need to take a day off, that's not what he wants. He doesn't want to take a day off. He loves this. He wants to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So his honesty is, Kev, don't try to tell me to slow down. Like, this is what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
My honesty is, brother, I don't want to live my life the same exact way you do.
Mm.
Right? So like a couple of years ago, I was like, dude, I really want to buy a new car. Like, I've been working really hard. The business has grown a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It would mean something to me beyond like, oh, it's a nice car. It would prove to me that I actually accomplished something.
Yeah, for sure.
He doesn't get that. He doesn't know. That's not the way. Now he was supportive of it and we did it, but he will never buy a car to help him feel fulfilled in the growth that that's just not the way he's wired.
Yeah.
So it's just been that. It's just been a very honest, like if you and I met up and I said, hey man, I was thinking Mexican food.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, dude, honestly,
Pizza.
love that for you. I don't really like that. It doesn't, I feel bad after, or I was thinking more like a steakhouse. It's like, well, I don't really like steak. Then we'd come to some level of understanding and we'd meet somewhere in the middle. And that's essentially what we've tried to do. Now, the beautiful thing is when it comes to core values,
Mm-hmm.
and core beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
we are very, very similar in that.
That's good.
And we also have we are aspiring to have the most successful self-improvement, personal development company on the planet. Like, that's what we're aspiring for. Our goals there are super aligned. It's just we're
The
honest,
path.
it's the path. And Alan always uses the analogy, if we're driving cross country,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't want to listen to the same music he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or on the same journey, we're going to the same place, but maybe I have my AirPods in and he's listening to something else. Like, okay, maybe I want to take the northern route and he wants to take the southern route. Okay, like, let's figure out how to do that. But as long as we're leaving from the same place and we're arriving at the same place,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're, you can find a way to optimize that and harmonize that, I would say.
Yeah. So there's a lot of open communication, and you said it before too, vulnerable, because vulnerable is hard to do for a lot of people, especially for guys, because it's not something that we're taught brings value to the workforce, it's
Mm-hmm.
not something that brings value to different things, but in the end, if we're not vulnerable, how can anyone know anything about us?
Yeah. It's hard because it's very hard, like you said, it's very hard to measure psychological safety.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't show up. It's not going
Yeah.
to show up on a chart unless you ask the right question of
Yeah.
how comfortable do you feel being yourself here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've never been
Yeah.
asked that before. Interesting. But yeah, it is. It's one of the keys. I mean, it's one of the pillars to our business. It's one of the pillars of our relationship. I mean, we've cried together. I couldn't count how many times. It's so common. It's not even worth talking about. It happens so often. It's not like
Yeah.
we have a conversation about it after. It happens so often. But
Yeah.
I think it's hard because we all know right now that there are
Mm-hmm.
certain people in your life that you don't feel safe being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The question is a couple questions. One, is it because you don't have that amount of courage yet?
Mm-hmm.
Totally fine if that's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you don't think they'd ever be receptive to it.
Mm.
That's a
Yeah.
different type of conversation. One of the things that really helped my friendships, I think I started doing this like 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When my friends and I would hang out and we'd leave, I would say I love you and I would hug
Mm-hmm.
them. And
Yeah.
in the
That's good.
beginning, it is good, Keegan, but in the beginning there was a couple of people that were like, "What in the hell are you doing?" But I also knew that it was new to them. It wasn't a judgment. It wasn't something that they wouldn't find value in, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there are definitely people in the past that I've been friends with that would not at all do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those probably aren't the people that I'm going to practice my vulnerability with. I'm going to find someone who I feel like is going to be more receiving
Mm-hmm.
of that. And that's why it's so hard. I think for a lot of us, unfortunately, the reason being vulnerable is so hard is because the people in our lives make being vulnerable hard, unfortunately.
Mm. Yeah, you actually do raise a good point on that, because it does seem that the nurture versus nature aspect in that regard really is a major factor,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And it is very true that a lot of people will sit there and not take a step forward because the people around them may not be receptive. But doesn't that fall onto the person experiencing that feeling, because they're saying, I don't think they have an idea of a person in their head, and they're essentially telling that person, like, hey, I think you're going to treat me this way if I do this. And it's doing themselves and that person a disservice.
Yeah. It's a really good point. It's a really good point. It's hard. Those are very, very challenging waters to navigate. If Think about how differently our conversation would go if, when I said something that was vulnerable, you said, "Ah, Kev, you're soft." It's like,
Mm.
that's all you. That's it. That's okay. So that's okay. That's where we're gonna stop. It's hard. That's why it's like it's courage on one end and it's
Mm-hmm.
humility on the other. I think
Mm.
the courage to express and the humility of the person who's being expressed to at least try to receive. But again,
Yeah.
being a human is hard as hell. It's hard.
It is. And that's one of the things that we really knock other people for, is like, hey, I'm humaning right now. why can't you human too? And it's like, because you have no idea what's going on in my head, in my heart, in my soul, all of that. Because, and if you're not vulnerable, you can't let people know about that. So thank you for just being vulnerable for those around you and with us here, because it is one of those things that drives retrieving sanity, because if we're not vulnerable, if we're not open, then the audience can't be either.
Of course.
And
Of course.
it's a part of being human, it's part of retrieving sanity, it's part of literally just the human condition. So, how did you grow those around you to be more receptive? Does that make sense? Did you grow those around you to be more receptive to how you were growing yourself? Or did you have to find the people that were
Yeah.
receptive in the first place?
No, I'm blessed where I've had some really amazing people around me.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some really amazing people around me, and very honestly, the people that didn't believe in what I was doing are just not here anymore.
Mm,
For me, my biggest fear is not being successful.
okay.
So the
Yeah.
last thing I'm going to
Yeah.
do is I'm not going to keep anybody in my life who craps on me trying to do what I'm trying. I can't. It will break me. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'd rather be alone. I'd rather be alone
Mm-hmm.
in pursuing my dreams than surrounded by people who don't believe in it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, not it's my I think it's my job to try to lead,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody else in my life, they are vulnerable and growth minded and ambitious to the level of their goals, not the goals that I prescribe for them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it's not up to me. Like I could give you a ton of feedback and tips and tricks on podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want that, it doesn't matter. Like, right? Value is contextual based on the person who's receiving it. So I think everybody has their own goals which predicate their own growth in the way that they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can try to lead the charge in certain things and just make sure that I'm receptive when somebody comes to me with something that they're testing. Like, I'm totally
Oh yeah.
fine being the training wheels for someone. Cool, you've never been vulnerable? Awesome, let's try it. Let's give it a shot. That's been
Yeah.
really important. But I
Huh.
think it's also super important to understand that it is a fine line and a potentially dangerous game to put your standards on somebody else. I can't expect everybody in my life to want to live their life like mine. One of my best friends said to me a couple years ago. He's like, "Yeah, man, I don't know, like the whole self improvement, personal development thing." He said, like, I enjoy it. It's really good,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm in real estate. I need to focus more on real estate.
Mm.
100%.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
factually you do. That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think you should be reading as many self improvement, personal development books as I am, just think my expectations of you are off. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to lead by example and I try to be receptive to what's happening. But again,
Mm-hmm.
I am imperfect. I am a human being trying to figure this all out. So I have so much work to do on that, and I will always have work to do on that. And I think all of us do, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you meet somebody who says they are fully evolved, they are not. It's a
Ooh.
guarantee.
Yeah, that is going to be as close-minded as you can get nowadays.
Yep, I've made
And
it. By that definition, you haven't because you
yeah,
can't. It doesn't work that way.
yeah. You saying I've made it is like, oh, hey, I'm talking to a zombie because you must be dead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can make that. That's about it, though.
Yeah. And see, it's one of those things. I had like three questions pop up, and I was like, I want to talk about that, that, and that. And it's one of those things that I can sit there and say, there's so much to talk about all at once that it feels like there's never enough time. But at the same time, it feels like everything just goes all right back in a circle, right?
It's all connected.
After doing 2,000 episodes, you're probably sitting here going like, I wonder where the next episode is going to go, if it's going to connect back to this one or if it's going to connect to this one. It's just got to be interesting because you've seen a myriad of facets of life. And essentially, what do you think is the main message that you've seen come across to you?
Man, nobody is ever really correct about you.
Mm.
And all I mean by that is we had a client, we still do. We have a client who is just a very intelligent. He's a leadership expert, TEDx speaker. Just a very well-spoken, good human.
Mm-hmm.
And one time he said, Kev, the press is never right. He said, you're never as good as they say, and you're never as bad as they say. It's like, whoo, what a powerful statement. That, but for all of us, that's been the lesson, is what you think about you is far more important than what anybody else thinks about you, because you talk to you more than you talk to anybody else.
Mm.
That. So if we get off here and then behind the scenes, Keegan says, wow, that was good, Kev. You're really good at this. It doesn't matter if I don't think I am.
Mm.
It doesn't
Mm.
matter. That has happened so many times where somebody be like, Kev, that was really good. I'm grateful and I appreciate that. And I'm humbled by that feedback, but you don't know what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
What's going on in my head is what I need to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad the painting worked, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing for most of the time. So I need to figure that out. That I think that's an important thing, that there's a lot of opportunity for external feedback and external significance, but that is not the solution.
Mm.
The solution is not that. The solution is not external for most of us. I think the solution for most of us is internal. So that's been the big thing for me, is external results create an opportunity for an internal level, like up level.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Then when you up level internally, you get more external opportunities, and it becomes this cycle forever.
Mm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you stop working on one of those opportunities go away, and I think that's how we get out of balance. Are you ever really balanced? But yeah, it would be that. We have to juggle the internal world and the external world if you want to impact more people, increase your lifestyle, be fulfilled, be more capable, have more skills. That's probably the biggest thing, I would say.
Okay. That's awesome. And I think that you encapsulated it very well, because I was sitting there kind of thinking along the same lines of, as you were going along, I was kind of like, everything is pointing to, after, I mean, I'm nowhere near 1,000 episodes, but I've already kind of seen that pattern of just people being people and humans. And it's working on the inner self and then working on the outer self. And then it really has been awesome to just talk to people that experience it and then want to go and share it with the world. And so it's just like, Kevin, I gotta thank you for
Of
just
course.
all of this. It is amazing. And unfortunately, we are right near the end of this episode, and it felt like, honestly, 10 minutes.
It always does, my friend. It always does. I'm happy. If you got a couple other questions, I'm happy to hang out for a couple minutes. I don't know what you got next, but
I got editing, and so you
life.
know how that goes.
I do,
Yeah.
of course, of course.
I got editing and all this other stuff behind the scenes that make the
I know the
podcast go.
feelings. I know the feelings.
But that's also the thing, too, is that we didn't get as much into everything. And it's just because I like to chase rabbits, because
Yeah.
I never know where the conversation's going to go. And sometimes kind of like how we were talking about earlier, you said everything just goes right back to it. It's one of those that I would love to see where our next conversation goes, if you would be
Of course.
willing to be back on.
Yep, 100% done.
Sweet.
I'll be on as many times as you'll get sick of me, Keegan.
No, I won't.
For me, I appreciate the depth of conversation. So like I love the fact that you chase rabbits, and there's always and again, this might come off as arrogant. I don't mean it that way. There's always a point in an episode where you kind of hit rock bottom or I don't want to say rock bottom. You hit concrete with someone. Yeah, it's like, okay, so that's the depth that we're going to get to. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get to that depth. So and I think you and I are feeling that. It's like, dude, I would love to do it again, and let's see how deep we can get. I'm in forever.
Heck yeah. Well, I really appreciate that. But before we do too much else, all of your shout outs, what do you got for the audience?
Man, usually I do 3. The podcast is called Next Level University. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. We do an episode every day. So after you listen to Keegan's episodes, you can come check us out. My handle on Instagram is NeverQuitKid. any questions, comments, or concerns, send me a message there. And then my email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. Again, same thing. If you have questions, if it's about podcast, whatever, shoot me a message. I am happy to answer. I'm not going to say you have to pay me for any of this. Like, I just want to add value. I want to be a good person. So anything I can do to help, just let me know.
Well, Kevin, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure having you on the show. And I know that you said that you had suicidal ideations in the past. Do you know a number that someone can call if they are suffering from the same thing?
I don't, so I would kick that to you because I'm sure you do.
Yes. So if there's someone in the US and they are suffering suicidal ideations or they're having any kind of mental health crisis, whether it was a bad breakup, but be on their report card, they can dial 988 and they will have someone on the other line that is willing to help them keep their light in this world. So
I love it. And I love what you're doing, my friend. I love what you're doing in the world.
I appreciate it, and I love what you're doing in the world. Can't have growth if we're not going to be vulnerable ourselves first.
I concur.
You know?
And I appreciate you having a platform for me to be vulnerable on. So.
Well, much appreciated. The thanks goes out to the audience, though, because without them, this wouldn't be possible either.
Yes. Just got a couple of weird dudes talking into microphones.
Yeah, right? And who would have thought that people would be entertained by this?
Well, I'm glad they are, my friend. I'm glad they are.
Me as well. And with that, everyone, we're going to end it here. So thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1. And everyone out there, have a great rest of your day, evening, or whenever you're watching this, really. Hopefully it's the weekend. But if you're having anything, call 988 for suicidal ideations. And by all means, just enjoy life. And as always, much love. So until next week, Shalon. Bye.